Hello, everyone. I am Thirteene, and tonight I'm going to be playing Heartless Gods. So, this is definitely going to be a fun, janky deck. I'm putting it power level maybe 3, maybe 4 out of 10 here. More or less, the concept is we just want to play with a lot of the God cards, and we're going to try to abuse that in the best way possible. The best way that we're going to abuse that is actually going to be using Heartless Summoning and Semblance Anvil to hopefully reduce the cost of the gods that we're playing with and make them so that they actually cost a competitive amount for Modern. Unfortunately, this means that we're going to be taking our turn 2, possibly turn 3 off to put out an enchantment that really doesn't do a whole lot, and in Modern that typically means you're going to die. But we've got a couple of different options here. A lot of our payoff cards are actually going to be in the form of gods, as many of you that played in Amonkhet were celebrating when these left because they were powerhouses when they played. Hazara was a very strong finisher in red. Ronus was a very powerful beater and was enabling things for Galta and the like. They just did some very powerful things, and Mogus here was actually really good in Theros, costing only 4 mana but having a very powerful effect. So the way that we're backing up this strategy is we're going to be playing with some of the more powerful modern cards like Lightning Bolt and Damnation, as well as Faithless Looting. We aren't abusing Faithless Looting in the way that Goryo's Vengeance or Storm or basically any of the other decks that try to abuse it do, but it's going to help us pitch our redundant cards because a lot of them are legendary or redundant, and we're going to try to lean on the back of some of these more powerful things here. And that is Heartless Gods. One thing to mention, I figured we actually needed Assassin's Trophy in this deck, but really couldn't squeeze in room for it. As we're playing, we're probably going to take the consideration that the Scorpion God or Perforos or possibly Nylea are supposed to be the Assassin's Trophies. Just get a little bit more reach and have some more generic answers. And tonight we're actually guest starring with Drunk Magic, who's going to be commenting for a little bit of the stream. And let's go ahead and get into Q. How are you doing tonight, Drunk Magic?
Doing pretty good. Looking forward to seeing how this functions. So, yeah.
Any thoughts on the deck?
No. Again, I don't play much MTGO, and I know I'm familiar with a lot of the cards that you are playing here, the ley lines, faithless lootings, and such. Just interesting to see how you've organized it to interact, because I know you make some pretty cool decks. So.
All right, well, we've got our first match here, so let's go ahead and queue on up. With this deck, we will definitely be taking the play. We are a little bit on the slower side, don't want to get ran over. And this hand is pretty freaking ugly. So Semblance Anvil says that you can exile a card from your hand when you cast it, and spells that share a card type with it cost 2 less. So that's kind of twofold there. It makes our creatures less, and it makes our enchantments less if we put one of the old Theros gods in. And Damnation on turn 4 is just, you die doing that in Modern. So we're going to go ahead and ship this one. And this hand actually looks kind of playable. We can Semblance Anvil, assuming Faithless Looting gets us into another god. Hazoret on turn 3 should be pretty close to empty-handed. We have Collective Brutality for a little interaction. It's both creatures and instants or sorceries, so we'll go ahead and run with this. Opponent is Chalice on the Roid. Not really sure what that means, but could potentially be facing a prison deck here, and all of our gods are going to get around that if that's the case. Opponent decides to keep. We will keep Mountain on top. So before seeing that Mountain, I was thinking we're going to get a Blood Crypt here with our Verdant Catacombs, allow us to Faithless Looting on 1, Collective Brutality on 2. Seeing that Mountain, though, going to go ahead and get our third color and just grab an... Ooh, guess we can't grab an Overgrown Tomb and Faithless Looting. We might be leaving green out of the mix for the current moment. Stomping Ground? Yeah. So Blood Crypt it is, go ahead and Faithless Looting. Getting rid of an anvil and probably the other anvil at this point. 3 mana is just not going to cut it for what we need. And definitely confusing our opponent. Not many people are going to Faithless Looting away 2 Semblance Anvils. Possibly thinking we're on a new KCI build, maybe trying to do eggs post-ban. But we just want to play some big stupid cards. Wooded foothills into stomping ground. Probably looking at Jund or Ponza. Nope, Dredge. Might be a little bit on the slow side for Dredge. So just trying to figure out if there's any reason to run the brutality here. Probably not. I'd prefer to leave Lightning Bolt up to hit anything that could potentially be a threat, and Brutality, making them discard a spell, is either just going to enable their Conflagrate or possibly give them a Dredger and Life from the Loam. So I'm pretty happy here just to pass with Bolt up and be able to get an Overgrown Tomb tapped. So hit a Creeping Chill and a Cathartic Reunion. So they're going to stop on their upkeep so that they can Shriekhorn again. Another Creeping Chill, another Shriekhorn. Well, going down to 11 there is kind of unfortunate. If we crack this fetch land now, it's going to enable their Bloodghasts. But it looks like they might be a little light on either lands or dredge effects. Well, 2 life from the loam's going away. Definitely not looking good. And the other Creeping Chill means that we're starting to look pretty bad here. Collective Brutality is probably going to be looking at Drain mode now. Conflagrate with Loam Engine. What have they dredged so far? So they have a Life from the Loam in hand. They have 2 Loams in hand. Ooh, boy. Alright, well that second fast land definitely makes it look a little worse having put out the fetch land the turn previous, but wanted to get the green mana just in case we needed it. Knowing that they have the Life from the Loam with the Conflagrate, I believe I'm 2-moding this. Try to gain some life back and make it so that they have to dredge if they want to cast the Life from the Loam. And probably not going to need the Lightning Bolt here. I'd kind of like to keep it for a prized amalgam. They haven't seen any yet, though. Possibly the fast land, but Hazoret being able to block seems pretty good, so goodbye Lightning Bolt. Probably not the best decision. Oh, I thought they had dredged the Life from the Loam, but I guess they didn't. Oh, they discarded it the second looting. Okay, that makes sense. Kind of don't care about the Narcomoeba coming in. It's probably going to be chump blocking Hazoret, assuming that we see an untapped land. Dredges the Loam, so they are looking at Conflagrate as an out. Casting the Loam will get them up to 6 lands. Conflagrate is down to 3. Possibly. No, they're going to cast the Loam here. Gronus, not a terrible draw here, although a little anemic compared to our opponent. So next turn between Ronus and Hazoret, we're going to be able to attack for 10. Opponent's probably getting in with the Narcomoeba, so we're going to go down to 8. Dredge Life from the Loam. Go up to 5 cards in hand, cast it, play a land. Yeah, that's not looking great. When they make their land drop, the Bloodghast is coming back. And the second blood gas there means that the conflagrate will be lethal. We need a way to gain life, which means collective brutality, and we only have one left in the deck. This one's slipping away pretty quick. They hit 3 of their creeping chills in the first half of their deck, though. That's pretty painful. So, assuming they actually conflagrate, we're actually just dead here.
Thinking it was just a bad start on that one.
A little bit. Dredge does a very good linear game plan. We have 4 ley lines in the side. The Anger of the Gods was there just for flavor, but we will be bringing it in for sure. I think we have enough hate that we can easily take game 2 and 3. We had a little bit of an anemic start, but the 3 creeping chills were just too much. Like next turn we'd be attacking for 10, putting them down to 12, and then we could activate the following turn. Like we're 2 turns behind.
You called that, yeah. Called it.
So Anger of the Gods was here just for flavor because we are a Heartless Gods deck. 3 damage to each creature, exiling it gets rid of almost all their creatures on the bottom end. Leyline of the Void, even though Modern Dredge is playable, it's a little slow, but they can play it from their hand. They actually rely on their mana, and then they can get a lot done. But Leyline of the Void is just going to make it so that they can't cast things. Damnation here is going to be an easy cut. We can destroy all creatures, but if they just come back, it doesn't really mean too much. Collective Brutality isn't great. We needed it to counteract their creeping chills, but they just exploded faster and we have to make some cuts. These discard redundant cards in our hand, considering we're going to have redundant gods, redundant Heartless summonings, redundant ley lines. Like, it's not the worst, but we have better things that we can do with our time and mana. And then Perforos is a little bit on the slow side. He says whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you ping for 2. It's a good amount of reach, and we can give all of our creatures +1/+0 for a giant mana sink, but we're going to beat them by shutting down their engine, not necessarily by needing the reach at the end of the game. Maybe an argument there to go for Fulminator Mage, but I think the ley lines are going to carry a lot of the weight. So our hand here, we have a turn 1 Faithless Looting. We can bolt something that they do. Semblance Anvil. There's just not enough action. We can mull to a ley line and make this a real game. Still no ley lines. Pretty much exact same hand. We ended up just losing a card. I'm good to mulligan again. Ooh boy. And this is where it goes out of control very quickly. Well, I guess we're keeping that. Not looking good, though. Seeing his opponent kept 6 and scryed to the bottom, we might have a shot here if they have a rough draw, but being on the mull to 4 without a lot of action is going to make it very hard. Opponent conflagrating here, basically just trying to get into the graveyard. You essentially just want the flashback cost anyway. Nylea, one of our fun ofs for flavor reasons, requires devotion to 5, so we're not even really going to get a creature if we ever get a caster. She does give all of our other creatures trample, though, and allows us to buff on a whim. Basically, the original Ronos. Ronos is just a little bit stronger for our current strategy. I also wanted to try to find a way to get Looter Scooter into our deck. The Smuggler's Copter. That took way longer to pull up than I was expecting it to. Smuggler's Copter allows us to attack and draw. Discard works really well with our New Age gods, but just couldn't find the room. So opponent's been dredging like crazy over here. They brought in Nature's Claim. I can't imagine what they thought we were doing. I guess I saw the semblance anvils. Assumed we were up to no good. But they have an engine going. We're stumbling on lands. We may end up just scooping it up here. Plus, they have a million stops that they're not using. I don't know how they keep tanking on our upkeep. Alright, so Leyline's pretty bad draw there. We still haven't seen much of a real clock out of them. Alright, there's an actual creature, as well as a Dredge 5, so we might have more incoming. Alright, up to 3 blood gas. We don't even have double red if we could find our out of Anger of the Gods to clear those away. Still haven't made land drop for the turn. In come the blood gas. Fetch land as well, so if we do kill them, they just come back. This feels like poor sequencing on the opponent's part. I know that we're not really doing a whole lot at the current moment, but you want to hold the Bloodstained Mire so you can bring blood gas back whenever you need them. The second Shriekhorn here isn't really doing a whole lot. They haven't found much damage, but... oh well. Get rid of the Narcomoeba, it's the only thing with flying. Also can't come back. Scorpion God does literal nothing. Another Creeping Chill. With this attack will put us below 10, so the blood gas will have haste. There's the Prized Amalgam, which means we'll be dead in 2 turns.
This actually just might be a bad matchup.
Mulliganing to 4 isn't really showing for anything. Dredge does a very linear game plan. If we opened on Leyline, they have to have one of their Nature's Claims in hand, and I see 3 in the bin, otherwise they wouldn't have been able to handle it. Okay, Creeping Chill means that we are literally dead. There's nothing we can do. We would have to draw a Faithless Looting into 2 red sources over 2 turns, and we'd be dead at the end of the 2 turns. I think that's actually completely plausible to win. I think we just had a really bad run the second game, not mulliganing into anything playable. In game 1, Dredge typically takes a lot of game 1s just because their game plan originally starts off very well. The few weeks I was playing the deck, you took almost every game 1, and then games 2 and 3 were did they draw the right sideboard hate, and did I draw an answer to it? And that's how you end up progressing through tournaments. Oh well, go on to game 2, see if we can do something fun here. Alright, this is looking a little bit more our speed. We get to open on Faithless Looting, try to draw into a little bit more action, and then we have some pretty strong turn 4 plays. If we Faithless Looting into a Heartless Summoning, it'll really show what we want to do here. Opponent is on the play though. And Hollow One. Well, I guess we'll see how explosive their turn 2 is. If they at least wait until turn 3, we might be able to get a little action off of this Damnation. And I'm okay to say goodbye to a Hazoret and probably the Damnation here. Damnation's going to be our ace if they end up exploding next turn off of Goblin Lore, though. I want to keep the land. Semblance Anvil will reduce the cost of the Hazarets. Collective Brutality is probably going to snipe the Aetherblade Adept, the Flameblade Adept. I don't know, Drunk Magic, what do you think? Semblance Anvil or Damnation here? I mean, the other option is we could just... let's just get rid of the Anvil. If you're talking, you're muted. And hopefully beats aren't too bad here. Lead on Street Wraith makes me think that they don't have the Goblin Lore. Oh, they are blue-red. They might be a Phoenix Hollow One hybrid. Magus of the Bazaar is some interesting tech. Okay, I'm actually a little curious to see what's going on here. I actually think I'm going to kill the Magus of the Bazaar in duress. We have plenty of colored sources. I don't really want to put Blood Moon too far out of the scope here, although I guess we need black for the Damnation, so I'll take a shock. And I believe that's putting me on discarding Hazoret. We can Damnation, then clean up with Mogus. Wow, okay, so they are a Dredge Hollow One hybrid. Take the Goblin Lore, just make it less likely that we're facing down the Hollow One. Likely going to see a Conflagrate for 1 next turn unless they draw into some gas, potentially just cycle the Hollow One. Alright, so I'm going to bolt the Flameblade before it deals damage. If they are some variation of Dredge, I'd like to make sure that we don't get hit by whatever damage here in case they have Blood Gas. Lightning Bolt's going to hopefully make them commit if they have something like a Goblin Lore, though. Oh, they're just going to discard their hand here. Yeah, I don't want to get hit for that much. Definitely going to get rid of this here. We can save the Damnation. So Mogus's text actually says at the beginning of each player's upkeep, it deals 2 damage to them unless they sack a creature. So this will actually just put a clock on them and make it so that they have to be sacking their recursion every turn if they end up getting to it. Although, being where we're at, I kind of just want a Damnation and then lead into Mogus. I don't like Hollow One. It's too big. They have no action going on here, though, so with the Hollow One gone, they're going to have to draw into an out. I do like our opponent's spice level here, though. Going into blue for the Magus of the Bazaar is making it feel a little bit more like Legacy. Or Vintage. Sorry, Vintage. Banned in Legacy. I knew that. So, Bazaar of Baghdad is draw 2 cards and discard 3 cards. Vintage Dredge ends up basically just mulliganing for that card and it fuels their entire deck. It's restricted. Alright, and now the spice level opponent probably had no idea Mogus of the God of Slaughter is coming out tonight. If they counter that, it'll feel really bad. Although it looks very much like Dredge. Alright, and Ronus will allow us to actually hold up Fatal Push as well. So Ronus still can't attack or block, although Mogus is a 7/5. We have to have Devotion of 7 of black or red, and Devotion is the number of mana costs that are currently on the field under your control. We have Devotion 2, a single black and a single red just off of Mogus. He's probably not going to be activating anytime soon. And seeing his opponent's on blanks, I'm actually happy to run out this Faithless Looting. It may have been more correct to play the Faithless Looting in the graveyard so we could discard the one in hand, but our opponent's not really doing much. And we don't see another god. I don't see any reason to run out Heartless Summoning at this point, as we've already got a couple of gods out. I believe that just means that we're getting rid of the land and the Heartless Summoning. Try to filter through our deck a little bit more. We don't have any way to trigger Revolt here, so we're just going to have to take the 2 and then Collective Brutality. And I'm okay to escalate. This increases our clock by a turn, assuming we don't see anything else. And will also gain us back a little bit of life. I can't imagine we end up needing the Damnation. Definitely seeing some flaws with this strategy, though. Even though they're powerful, Mogus as an enchantment isn't nearly as effective as the 7/5 is. And because we got rid of our land, Scorpion God doesn't do anything. We have the mana for it, so I'm going to run out the Faithless Looting. We'll still be able to hold up Fatal Push in case they get a creature. And may as well just get rid of the 2 lands here. If we draw a land, we can just hardcast Scorpion God, although opponent won't survive that long. So if opponent can't kill us here, they, scoop it up. Alright, Nature's Claim. Hidden Text says kills a turn 1 hollow one. Leyline of the Void, they are definitely a Dredge version. They have Prized Amalgam. Anger of the Gods comes back in, similar to last game. Damnation's coming out. Perforos is coming out. Fatal Push feels like it loses some value. I think I'd rather have a Damnation over Fatal Push, seeing the Flameblade Adepts and the Hollow ones. That actually might be an argument to keep 1 or 2 in. So, Frika, God of Affliction, is actually an interesting one. Unfortunately, if you exile a card out of their graveyard, they're the one that gets the Death Touch Snake, but it is a good way to hate out specific cards in graveyards. And that is something we get to run main board on flavor, so yay. Bantu probably loses some flavor here. We're not going to have a lot of things dying on our side of the field, and having just a generic 4/6 or 3/5 if Heartless Summoning is out doesn't seem like it's going to cover a whole lot. Scorpion Gods probably the same way. Take out some of our fun of gods that just don't feel like they do as much. Probably just going to be Xenagos at 5 mana. I mean, if we stabilize, then Xenagos could be any finisher. Alright, and despite not having a Leyline, I kind of like the look of this hand. It's a turn 3 Hazoret, and we'll actually be rid of most of the cards in our hand. And you never know when you're going to get Burning Inquiried. I was trying to figure out if it was worth it to run out the fetch land or just the shock land. We have the follow-up fast land, so our turn 2 play is going to be free. I ended up deciding that the fetch land can get us a basic if we care about our life total when the time comes around. So we actually saw a lot of what their hand is trying to do. I think I'm actually just going to one-mode this. I'd rather just kill the creature sorcery speed. If they have a Goblin Lore in hand, they probably would have ran it out last turn. Conflagrate going into the graveyard is just going to help them. There's no point in doing that. And I actually think I want to get a basic here. Getting a basic swamp and then leaving up the lightning bolt feels like better sequencing. This also gives our opponent to try to commit into the Flameblade Adept, and then we'll kill it before they get a chance to do anything with it. Okay, so discarding Prized Amalgam, and that's the only thing of merit. They do have a Magus of the Moon, so that was actually a good call. And with the Burning Inquiry on the stack, going to get rid of the Adept. Well, they got rid of both of our Hazrats, but we got a Mogus, so pretty happy with that exchange. And then the power of this deck is we actually get to play a Mogus and Collective Brutality, the last card in their hand. Because we're going to be ahead at this point, and so just dressing and seeing what they've got, try to take it away, seems like the best out. Now Mogus gets to do his thing again. Again, they have to either sacrifice a creature or take 2 damage. Alright, so seeing as they have 2 prized amalgams in the graveyard already, Leyline of the Void will actually only stop new cards from being put in there. I'm kind of okay with running that out just because any cards that could get prized amalgam out are going to have to be new. There's probably an argument here to Faithless Looting and try to draw onto some more gas, but I think we're so far ahead we can take the turn just to make them slow down a bit more. We did take game 1, so showing them our sideboard tech here to try to lock it up a little harder is perfectly acceptable as well. And another little fun interaction with this deck, Nature's Claim will destroy an enchantment. A lot of our gods, like Mogus from the Theros block, are enchantments and indestructible. So in a pinch, this also reads gain 4 life. Chaining together Street Wraiths, possibly playing a hollow one. Will Nature's Claim it and they'll feel bad. Don't need Mogus. We have Heartless Summoning, so we can cast everything in our deck at this point. but it's looking like we locked him out. Alright, so right now currently have Devotion 5 with Mogus. The green's not really going to help, but getting out... Sorry, Mogus has Devotion 5. Ronus can go ahead and... I way overpaid for that. Okay, well, general rule of thumb, play your best play not to correct your mistake. Is it worth it to hold up the lightning bolt? I don't necessarily believe so. We're so far ahead. Go ahead and run out the Faithless Looting. Don't really need to see either of those, and we can ship it back. So this has to attack in. We can hold up Lightning Bolt now. Just make sure that we can kill it. Thanks to Leyline, it'll actually stay dead. Although, oh, I can't double bolt. Maybe it was correct to keep a red source. Okay. So, funny enough, I'm going to float a green here just in case we need it. But when this comes down, our lands are mountains and we can kill our opponent. Thank you, opponent. GG's.
Oh, that was a great way to win.
Yeah, it's always kind of nice when your opponent does something to help you out. I mean, I could have always just bolted the Magus, but he was fixing my mana for me.
Sweet, sweet. Yeah, I'm gonna drop, so.
Alright, well, thanks for sticking around. Hope you enjoyed the rest of your night.
Absolutely. Yeah, I got the other deck posted up, so. Yep.
Nice, I'll take a look at that later.
Sounds good. Have a good one. Yep.
You too. Alright, this hand doesn't do anything. If I had a second mana, it would be a nut draw for this deck, but I can't keep it on speculation when I'm on the play. The game plan's already a little iffy as it is, so need to go in with an actual firm concept of what I want to do on my turn. I will keep the Bolt. Premium card can go wherever I need it to. I do believe I want a Faithless Looting here. I'm probably going to have to get rid of a land and Scorpion God. And I didn't think about what mana I was going to fetch. I just knew I wanted to fetch. So, have the Overgrown Tomb. I have all three colors. This is going to be the most redundant piece. Oh, and I got rid of the Bolt. That was 100% a mistake. Alright, so Semblance Anvil can go away, as well as Basic Mountain. And as usual on the stream, our opponent is probably trying to figure out what the heck is going on. Alright, so funny enough, this cares about power 4 or greater, Bantu is 4 or greater. If we had a Heartless Summoning here, it would actually be against our best interest to run it out. Although we could Scorpion God the following turn. That would end up being a 5/4. Yeah, that might be correct. But opponent leading on Noble typically means Infect, Breeding Pool almost certainly confirming that. Okay, so looking more like Malaria combo, potentially a variant of Coco or Nightfall. Just in case that this white that they're kind of demonstrating here off their creatures is a real thing, going to run out Ronus. If they have Path to Exile, they'll most likely path it, allowing us to run out the other one in our hand, as opposed to getting stuck on 2 Ronuses in a single Bantu. If our opponent goes infinite here, we don't really have a way to combat that at all, so we'll just scoop it up and let them have it. Damnation looking pretty sweet. Don't quite have the mana for it, though. Hopefully our opponent runs something else out into it. If they do have a way to go infinite... Bounding Craxus. Alright. So this is actually probably the new Malaria pod deck. Yep, so Stomping Grounds is likely to hardcast Kiki-Jiki. So if the new pod creature comes down and they untap, they'll win. So hopefully if they run it out, we'll end up seeing our second black mana here. Or fourth mana. We have 2 black already. Okay, so Bolt giving us a little more flexibility in what we can do. They left up 5 mana, though. Likely going to see a Coco here. Okay, that confirms new pod deck. So the new pod deck is off of, I believe the name is Prime Seeker. It's off of Prime Speaker Vanifar. So you sacrifice a creature and then you get a tutor for something with mana costs greater than 1. With that tutor, you end up going and getting these untapped creatures to untap her up until you get to the point that you have Kiki-Jiki combo. That goes infinite and will one-shot you. So this looks like Court of Calling. It's probably going to go get the pod creature. 5 is getting Kiki-Jiki. Okay, they only run 1 Kiki, so I'm going to bolt it, plus they have 2 creatures that can untap here. So he gets a copy of the Hippocamp. This would untap another creature you control, which would untap Kiki-Jiki. Kiki-Jiki will make a copy of the Hippocamp again, and that will just go infinite until he has a bunch of 3/2 haste creatures. And I'm blocking the Kitchen Finks. The Persist trigger will go onto the stack. It'll come back as a 2/1, and then assuming I can Damnation here, we'll end up winning the game. I mean, they can still technically come back from that, but it's going to be significantly more hard. Although they now have 3 attackers, we would have... I guess I could block and sack and take 2? That's a terrible line, but it could help me scry into Damnation. We'll see if they have the combo or not. Plus, for all opponent knows, we could end up holding a bolt or push or some type of interaction for the combo. Assuming that they have another Bounding Craxus or just about anything that buffs, we're pretty dead though. Discarding lands to the Faithless Looting was probably a mistake. We're running 23 though, it shouldn't be that much of an issue. Alright, looks like they have another Chord. If they have another Chord, I'm actually really curious to see if they run a second Kiki-Jiki. I know the initial list that Saffron Olive was brewing with only had 1 of them. Yep, second Kiki is GG's. Alright, so what do we care about here? Anger of the Gods will kill a bunch of their smaller stuff. Damnation will help clear a cluttered board. I care more about the spot removal, though. Need to keep in mind that I have to leave up a fetch land for Fatal Push if I believe they're about to combo. Again, Perforos is probably one of the least strong gods. Assassin's Trophy looking like it'd be very good in the spot of these three, potentially these four. Just having more removal before we get into our indestructible gods that are really hard to deal with. Seems like a pretty good place to be at. They are definitely 4-color. Fulminator Mage becomes a consideration. Erebos not gaining life is kind of relevant if they do end up having Malira or Vizier in their deck so that they can actually go infinite life. Freaka doesn't seem very powerful. Scorpion God being able to remove things if I have mana up seems relevant. Is probably the best we're going to do. They potentially have things that I care about. Probably not. I don't care about Rest in Peace. I don't care about Stony Silence. Don't care about Ley Lines. Nature's Claim was more of a consideration for Affinity and Hardened Scales and Hollow One, so I think we're fine there. Duress could potentially take Coco or Court of Calling. I think we're running about as optimal as we can, right, with this strategy, though. We will go ahead and take the play. And this seems fine. Faithless Looting, chain it into either Heartless or Semblance Anvil, depending on what we draw. Fulminator, we can see if it looks like they're stuck on lands, but more or less probably going to get discarded to Faithless Looting. Alright, so Blood Crypt costs life, and Semblance Anvil doesn't have another target. Ship it on over to opponent. Mogus seems fantastic here. Gonna go ahead and just go with the Heartless Summoning. Grabbing our last color. It may have been correct to run out the Black Cleave Cliffs there in case we drew another one. Even if I did draw another one, a land seems like a good pitch for Faithless Looting if I cast it from Graveyard. Apparently didn't want to send a message. Alright, so definitely playing fast land. I believe Mogus is our best card here. And then next turn can be Fulminator, Hazaret, land, attack. Assuming we don't actually sack the Fulminator, that'll be 3, 4, 5, 6 devotion. Getting pretty close to being able to attack with Mogus as well. And I think opponent's trying to figure out what we're doing here. It should seem pretty obvious when you see Heartless Summonings and random gods, but... Oh, they have Scrib Ranger. Alright, so we are potentially looking for removal next turn. And I didn't save the fetch land for Fatal Push, like I had mentioned. Unfortunately, this alone isn't much of a clock. They'll be taking damage until they think they can combo us. Scrib Ranger has Pro Blue. You can return a forest to untap a creature. Again, going back to this Prime Speaker Vanifair, you sacrifice a creature and search your library for something, and you can untap. So you can run it with Renegade Rallier to pick back up Scrib Ranger or whatever to drop you sacrifice, and this can return a forest, get you another activation from the Prime Speaker. So, just another way to continue comboing. Haven't seen their namesake card come out of their deck yet, but their plan is apparent. So, 4 mana for Shalai. Expecting removal, pretty smart. Another toolbox card as well. Good part of this slug strategy, though, is while we're chipping down, as you saw against Dredge, we do hit a point where we can just start flipping bolts and attacking with Hazoret and actually apply a lot of pressure to the opponent. And here, I believe I'm actually just going to run out these two. So they currently have 4 mana. I actually might be sacking the Fulminator Mage. So sacking this, make it so that they can't hardcast Kiki Jiki, or they have the birds, so taking them off red seems like it's most relevant. Oh, they're all forests. That was a terrible mistake on my part. Should have just kept the devotion for Mogus. Yeah, keeping Fulminator Mage so that we could take out whatever land they don't return to hand when they go to activate Scrib Ranger seemed pretty good. We did set them back a land drop, though, which is effectively doing what we need it to do. July being able to put on a counter to get out of range of Hazoret is going to be a problem long term. Alright, so Ronus costs 1. We can activate Hazoret by discarding, which means that they're going to be strictly on sacrificing Mogus unless they end up chumping. Chumping is going to be effectively better for them than sacrificing the Mogus. Mogus will do 2, Hazoret will do 4. Oh, I could have given it Trample and gotten lethal. Alright, well that's unfortunate. That was a misplay. I should have played the Catacombs. I was expecting to pitch it to Hazoret. Yeah, we could have pretty easily taken this. And despite the punt last turn, they're going to have to sack a creature. It might be the Ranger here, but they're on 3 mana, and they need 4 mana to at least get down their combo piece. I believe it is correct to actually activate Hazoret at instep here. We still have up an activation of Ronus next turn, and opponent is definitely seeing the pressure of the gods. And that's game. If they get Kiki Jiki, they can combo off and kill us. Well, we could have easily taken game 2 there. That was definitely a mistake on my part. Again, this deck's power level is not up to par for where Modern needs to be at, but it's definitely a fun concept. If I would have played out the land there and given Hazoret Trample, they would have had to have chump blocked with something else. I guess if they chumped with Shalai, they probably would have been fine, but Shalai would be gone. They'd be down 2 more health. We will take the play. Single black source, Fatal Push. This one actually can cast for a couple of turns, assuming that nothing goes wrong into a Heartless Summoning and some card draw. I'm willing to give this a shot. Not a huge fan of the 1 land concept, but I'll make do with what I need to make do with. We do have kind of a similar strategy to Jund. Just go mid-rangey, get some powerful effects out. Although it looks like we're playing against Free Win Red. Or potentially a Phoenix deck. Probably Free Win Red. Which means basic Swamp here would do some pretty good stuff. If they end up discarding 2 Phoenixes and I don't even know what they'd cast for green. Oh, this is Belcher. Okay. We will not do great against Belcher. Definitely Belcher. So what this deck is doing is it's casting Goblin Charbelcher, revealing cards from the top of their library until there's a land card, and that deals damage equal to the number of cards revealed. So they run a very, very small amount of basic lands, and they typically tutor it up with Traverse or try to find it with random cards like Recross the Path, as well as a bunch of just mana generators like the Wild Cantor and Caravan Vigil. Like, they just try to get all their lands out really quick and run weird cards like the Green Chancellor to get an additional mana on turn one to try to get up to the point that they can explode. If they can't go off, they usually die a horrible death, but we don't really have fast pressure, especially with this hand. So it might be a little rough for us to kill them. They're probably going to be able to do their thing, but willing to give it a shot here. Lucky enough to top deck the land, which means we can at least bring down Erebos and start getting some creatures on the field. Unfortunately, these are all the Theros ones that require devotion, so they're not going to activate very quickly. And Goblin Charbelcher costs 4, and it costs 3 to do their activation. So if they end up ritualing here and putting out a Goblin Charbelcher, we're not going to be able to punish them very hard for it. Alright, so Semblance Anvil doesn't really do anything here. Erebos will allow us to start drawing. So they revealed 43 cards to get to a land. That land's going to enter the battlefield. They get a clash. Clashing means that you both reveal the top of your deck. Whoever has greater mana cost wins. Okay, so they put the Chancellor on top of their deck. The Chancellor costs 7, and that's how they get their mana to start the game. This is also going to make it so that they get a return Recross the Path to hand until they have no more basics. So I'm going to put this on bottom. I assume that we're never going to beat them. They're just going to stop going after they have all their basics, which it looks like it's 3. Alright, Verdant Catacombs means that we have the opportunity to play something next turn, although we're probably just going to die. They were able to stack their deck in any order that they wanted to, which means they're going to have Ritual into Charbelcher. Although they didn't reveal a Charbelcher. Oh, yes, they did. They revealed 1. Unfortunately for our opponent, that might be how they lose. Unless they actually have the rituals here to go off. Which it's very possible with 7 new cards. Just going to F6 here. More than likely they kill us, but I want to make sure that they actually have everything they need for it. So there's 7, just need 1 more. Oh, nope, there it is. And that's game. All right, so as you saw, they have 3 lands and they have Charbelcher. Nature's Claim comes in unless they have to, just in case they have to stagger it over 2 turns. Dampening Sphere comes in because they have to ritual up to pay for it. Duress, getting a card into their graveyard early, like their 1 Charbelcher, is a fantastic way to win. Don't really care about any of the creature or board kills. Collective Brutality can snag their Go Search for Manas. Scorpion God does nothing. Lightning Bolts are kind of meh. Nylea doesn't do much. Perforos doesn't do much. Again, these were originally included for flavor. If this deck obviously doesn't have legs, I know a lot of people have toyed with the concept before. So I figured may as well put a couple of fun ofs in. These 4 are very usable as Assassin's Trophies. Assassin's Trophy there hitting a land would have just been backbreaking for our opponent. They have 3. We will take the play. Collective Brutality, Bolts, Hazaret. I'd rather see a little bit more hate. I'd prefer to see some hate with some lands. And that's about as good as it's going to get, is off color. Alright, well, Dampening Sphere is castable, so go ahead and keep that on top. While opponent tanks. Alright, opponent is trying to figure out, they're essentially playing a weird Stormless, trying to figure out if their 7 cards would be able to win the game. So, going to give them the opportunity to do that. No turn 0 Chancellor. It looks like they only run 1 off of what we saw revealed last game, and that's just to win Clash and potentially get 1 more mana at the start of turn. Alright, so kept a no lander with intent to just use their 1 mana to go get a basic land. Seeing as they're running Wheel of Fortune, the suspend version, I can't remember the exact name, it's like Forge of Soul. Gonna go ahead and run out our hate as fast as possible. More than likely, I could expect them to... Fantastic. I could see them running Artifact Hate, expecting our hate pieces. So, would have been nice to put that out on this turn, but they're going to get their Forest, be able to play the Forest, potentially a Wild Cantor. Tune with Aether will go get their 2nd basic. Yep, would have been fantastic to have Dampening Sphere out last turn. But sequencing here is going to be, I'm going to go get my basic. It's not improbable that they run Blood Moon, so I'm actually just going to grab our Swamp here. Go for the Duress, try to get out one of their core combo pieces. Okay, so they actually have... We knew they had the Mountain from the Attune with Aether. So Caravan Vigil can go get one, Redundant Pieces won't do that. They have 2 Recross the Paths and a Faithless Looting. Faithless Looting probably gives them the most action here. Next turn they can just play a land and Recross the Paths though. Recross the Paths is going to let them start setting up to win, so I'm just going to take that. Their hand's looking like it does a lot of what they want it to do though, so... Might not be the best here, but Dampening Sphere will definitely stop that. Likely going to see Caravan Vigil, go get the other basic. Possibly see Faithless Looting, get rid of the spare Chancellor. Yep, Caravan goes down. They get a Forest. Okay, so they have 1 unknown in hand. Just going to run out Ronus here. If we see 1 more piece of action, one of the new Amonkhet gods, he'll be able to attack. And getting a clock down is going to be the best way that we get around winning this. Next turn, it's very possible that they just recross the paths and stack the top of their deck. Dampening Sphere will hopefully push them to the point that they have to run out the Goblin Charbelcher, and then we can destroy it before they can activate it on the following turn. Yep, so he gets to stack the deck. Did reveal a Chancellor, so we're not going to win that war. Luckily can't cast anything this turn, so it's very possible that he's going to reforge his soul on his following next turn. He did have a Pact of Negation. That is worth noting. So they typically keep that for the turn that they're about to go off. So if I did Nature's Claim their Goblin Charbelcher, they could Pact of Negation the Nature's Claim, and then I would have to, in response to the upkeep trigger to lose the game, he'd just activate it and kill me. Okay, we flipped Aronis. Don't want him. Need to keep the Pact of Negation in mind for when it's his turn. If he can't get rid of the Dampening Sphere, then I'm going to have to do this on a turn that he's already cast a spell. Okay, what does this mean? Seeing as I saw most of his deck, and I haven't seen any artifact hate, I can't imagine he brought it in. Erebos isn't going to activate Ronus, but if I get it out, I can start using it to draw cards. I'm expecting to reforge the soul here. See if there's a stop on draw. There's the reforge the soul. So I figured this was going away anyway. Opponent's asking about the deck, so I ended up just responding. Basically saw that all the creatures were large, cheap, and indestructible, saying that the Heartless Summoning was a good fit. And it is. It doesn't do anything on the power level of Modern. Alright, so we still don't see any artifact hate from opponent's discarded hand. We do have Duress, though. So we can at least try to figure out what's going on and what you stack that you might be relying on. Alright, opponent's probably actually responding to me. May as well just show chat at that point. Let's see, nothing from him, so gonna Duress, see what our opponent actually put in his hand that he cares about. So, 2 Charbelchers, a Ritual, and a Pact of Negation. I can't really answer the 2 Charbelchers. So, 3 Simian Spirit Guides. That's 6 mana. Faithless Looting will make it so I can't cast another spell this turn. So he needs 7 mana, which is not achievable with his current hand. So I think that means Pact of Negation here. He probably put the last Simian Spirit Guides in exile. Yeah, it's probably Pact of Negation, and I'm looking for the other Nature's Claim. So I have redundant colors, so let's do this. Get rid of shock lands, and so it costs 3 mana to cast anything. Shock land tapped. Ship it back, see if you can kill me. Well, opponent's pretty cool dude. He's playing a very fun deck. It's just not very reliable. In Legacy, it's called the Force of Will check. If your opponent doesn't have Force of Will, it's kind of easy to kill them. You have a little bit more card selection, and you get a couple more cards like the green Elvish Mystic, Elvish Spirit Guide. It's Simian Spirit Guide, but an elf instead of an ape, and it's green. And then you also get Land Wish, or Land Grant, where you get to go search out the one basic in your deck. Or your one land in the deck, which is usually a taiga. Alright, so looking for the... There it is, Nature's Claim. So discarding Semblance Anvil and probably Blood Crypt. Killing the Charbelcher. Oh, and he had the negation. And we'll pack it up. Showing hand in case he was curious. Gonna go ahead and bring back the overlay and the chat box, and I have been doing a horrible job updating, and by that I mean I haven't updated it at all. We are currently 1-3, kind of about where I expected us to be. It just didn't really do anything at the power level expected of Modern, and we'll go ahead and queue up for another one. So kind of coming back to the deck view here, the Heartless Gods just don't do enough. They don't impact the board. They have some pretty decent enchantments, Mogus being the best one, and it's kind of just slug. He doesn't do enough for 4 mana, but does a ton for 2. Also requires you to be in 2 colors. Ronus is probably one of the best of this bunch. Going all in on the Amonkhet Gods would probably do a little bit better, but opponent's waiting for us on this game, so we'll go ahead and come on back to this. It looks like we have no red mana, but we have a turn 2 Heartless Summoning, turn 3 Xenagos, and turn 4 Ronus. That all seems fine. We'll go ahead and keep that. Hopefully draw into a red source, have a bolt for whatever they're up to. And Mishra's Bauble these days probably means Death's Shadow. Targeting himself, seeing if he wants to crack his fetch land. Weird sequencing. If he knew he wanted to crack the fetch, he should have just gone and done it. And no red source, but 2 lightning bolts means that we can burn him out depending on how aggressive he gets with his life total. And he's looking like he's got a pretty nutty start. Well, our turn 2 Heartless Summoning's probably not going to be doing enough here. And Mogus could potentially just be helping him out depending on what his hand looks like. Hello, fish. Never really like seeing you on turn 2. And see if he's got the Stubborn Denial. He does. Looking very bad for us. On the plus side, a lot of their interaction is with non-creature spells, and We have a lot of big creatures. We just need a way to actually get them to stick and enable them, which is asking a lot. This deck does a lot of very high tempo things. It's very confusing to me that they're in the 1-3 bracket at the moment, but we'll take our matchup. Just going to town with that Boblin formation, the Street Wraiths. Death Shadow possibly coming down main 2. Guess not. Hey, look at that beautiful red mana. Alright, so potentially Remand. I think they've stopped running Remand, though. I believe Ronus here into Bantu is going to give our best chance. It looks like they actually do run Dismember. And that actually makes a ton of sense. Alright, Verdant Catacombs. So I can run out Bont to attack in and then potentially bolt him. He likely has 2, possibly 3 more Stubborn Denials left in his deck. I can stay on defense, but that doesn't really feel like winning. Mogus isn't going to enable anything of value. Bantu can come down. If our opponent... I'm assuming my bolt isn't resolving. That's going to be the bottom line here. I think I'm going to stay on defense and see if they have their Dismember. That's probably going to be the card that they least likely have. And check to see what opponent actually does here. Okay, so I have a 5/5 Death Touch. This is going to be the best play here, assuming that they don't have Battle Rage. Okay, that reeks of a delve cost. Yep, there's the Battle Rage. That's just game. Alright, very strong deck here. Duress probably going to be very good for their Stubborn Denials, at least be a 1-for-1. Leyline's going to make it so that they can't delve. Scorpion God does nothing. Xenaghost does nothing. Mogus kind of assists them in their strategy. Nalia doesn't really do anything. Perforos has some unique reach for this matchup, kind of considering keeping him in. Fulminator Mage, they have a very greedy mana base. It looks like they have 2 basics on average and 5 fetch lands, with a lot of very expensive things. If Leyline comes out, Fulminator can really just make it so that they can't cast much. And I know a lot of other lists actually run more aggressive mana bases than that. They want to get all their dual lands and take all the shocks that they can with 1 or 2 fetchable lands just to get out if their life total goes low enough. Damnation can hit fish, but it will just get Stubborn Denialed for 4 mana. Nature's Claim doesn't do anything. Fatal Push is a very good card. Collective Brutality also, again, has some unique reach to it. It's probably Hazaret here, maybe Erebos. Erebos is more likely to be online with the ley lines. Bantu also seems a little iffy. Probably just Bantu. Go ahead and ship it back. We'll take the play this time. This hand does what we want it to, so go ahead and keep that. Start off with our ley line. We don't have a turn 1 play, so go ahead and start off with our fetch shock, or fetch no shock. updated the wrong record. We are currently 0-1 against Death's Shadow, and overall we are 1-3. Yep, that's unfortunate. They get their choice here, probably the Heartless Summoning. Also, at a point that they can cast their Death Shadows, it's always a really good start for them. Especially on the Leyline plan when they're less reliant on fish. Not telegraphing the mountain. Gonna go ahead and run out the Overgrown Tomb Blackcleave Cliffs. Alright, now I do want to make my Fulminator here. They're on 1 mana. So there's definitely an argument to just take out the Watery Grave. I'm a little tempted to Fog the Shadow, but that gives them the opportunity to lower the life total more. Yeah, I think I'm just going to get rid of it. If they're stuck on 1 mana, that seems like the safest play. Alright, Leyline is a terrible draw. I'm going to go ahead and get a basic here. Don't really care. We have all of our colors. And Perforos is actually going to be able to ping them, so that's probably our best play here. Hazoret's not going to be able to attack. Yeah, Perforos is probably just our best play here. Devotion is currently 1. If we see a Mogus, Devotion will be 5, with Hazoret is 6. Opponent's still whiffing on lands. That's interesting. Discards fish. Yeah, that really doesn't do a whole lot. Alright, so what I want to do here is try to get a land and then be able to play Hazoret. Or that seems fine as well. Just in case they have a Street Wraith, Bolt wouldn't be able to kill it, so I'm going to keep the Fatal Push here. So they got a basic island. Thought scouring themselves, I believe they're just trying to get another land. When Hazoret enters, Perforos is going to ping them to 2, taking them to 9. Hazoret attacks in for 5. And we just need to activate her twice, and that should be game. Yep, opponent can't do much about that. We probably have the best configuration here. Considering Mogus, their life total gets low enough. I'm willing to bring it in. Just seems like it's going to be stronger than Erebos or possibly Perforos here. Perforos did do a little bit of work, but it was just such an awkward turn 4 drop. Any arguments for other cards? Bontu gaining 1 life just doesn't seem good enough since you have to sack a creature. Bontu does seem to get a lot better with Fulminator Mage, though. That's actually an interesting concept that I'd be willing to play with. Sack Fulminator, attack with Bontu. Erebos card draw seems a little interesting, but given how tempo play they are, it just doesn't seem right. Stubborn Denial is just such a good Magic card. Okay, I'm willing to stick with this hand. I would prefer to see a Leyline hand, but I have Duress to take out any problem cards, Fatal Push for any early creatures. Ronus will be able to block on turn 4, assuming I hit my land drops and I'm on the draw. Fish will be a problem, but both of these guys can block fish. So looking at our deck. So potential Thought Scour coming. And we'll see what he actually cares about here. The dress. Yep. Sounds about right. Can basically read that as having the Stubborn Denial for sure. And they know about the bolt, so they're going to do whatever they have to do. Probably going to get to a point that Death Shadow's a 5/5 or run out of fish, and then have Stubborn Denial up so that we can't push the Death Shadow, but need to actually make sure they have those cards. Given the fact that they're on Serum Visions, that might have been a reason to take Duress. They might be stumbling on lands again. Thoughtseize. I'm kind of okay with them taking anything here. If I had to guess, I'd assume Ronus is going away. Yep, doesn't want Ronus to be able to block. When I saw Ronus go away, I had already made up in my mind that I wanted to not correct my fetches to make it more likely to draw the lands. Again, statistically insignificant, but our opponent's going to be doing some work against themselves here, and I'd like to see my 4 lands as they hadn't applied pressure yet. And opponent obviously left up the Stubborn Denials to protect this, but still going to try to take it out. It's likely that they burn 2 trying to protect it. Couldn't see the force for some reason. Wait, is that 4 more? Yeah, that's 4 more. That was a mistake. Okay, so there's no reason to run out Semblance Anvil here. It's not going to make Hazoret any cheaper. It is very possible that they do 1 damage to themselves off of a fetch land. Then if they don't have a fish or something to protect it, then Hazoret can come down and just end the game. Problem here would be fetch land, shock, Thoughtseize, go up to a 9/9. I guess I don't even need the Thoughtseize, just go up to a 7/7 double strike. Makes it so that we wouldn't be able to run out our hand the way we want it to. They do know about 1 lightning bolt. I think opponent's trying to figure out if they can kill us this turn, so that's not good. Snapcaster Mage. So probably going for Thoughtseize here. If they go for Thoughtseize, that could mean that they know about Hazoret. There's no way that they're going to... They might just be figuring out how not to die if they make them lose life. Alright, so it's probably correct here to get rid of the Snapcaster Mage. That's their blocker. Otherwise they go down to 7, I bring them down to 4. They're going to take Hazoret. Then that would mean that I need something that can come in and attack, which again is the fatal flaw of this deck. Death Shadow is a much better tuned version of putting down a creature and protecting it, and this is just relied on the creatures to be able to protect themselves and requiring another level of making them be able to interact. But they're doing fun things. It's God Tribal. We'll see if they end up going for the Shock Double Strike. they've seen our hand, so they know that. I guess they would need another mana to do that. They do want to put us on a 2-turn clock, though. Top decking one of our other 3 Hazarets is not statistically significant, but could win us the game. Nope, and GG's opponent. Alright, so 1 and 4. Not very good, but we played Gods. I've mentioned it a couple of times at this point. So the issue with this deck in general is the fact that the Gods require something else to have impact, and they already cost too much mana to be viable in Modern for that reason. So something like Perforos, actually, look here. Hazaret is fantastic. If you can keep your hand empty, she's 5/4, she has haste, she has an activated ability. She does everything that you want this deck to be able to do. Mogus has a very strong enchantment level to him that makes him viable at 3 mana. If you're doing Heartless Summoning, he's great. And Ronus also does something great and is enabled by almost all the other Amonkhet gods. Like, he was a very well-crafted card by the development team, but together they aren't strong enough for Modern. It just can't be overstated. What is this deck doing that's broken? Well, if we get 3 cards together and we have just the exact scenario on board, we have a 5/5 indestructible. Well, Storm's going to kill you by then. So this definitely could use a little more help. God Tribal is fun on paper. They did some fun things. We had a couple of fun interactions, especially in Game 2 against the bizarre Dredge deck. But it's just not strong enough on its own. We did have a couple of fun things in here, like the Anger of the Gods is there for flavor. The Scorpion God is kind of just like a crewable way to interact with the board. His activated ability doesn't get any cheaper resemblance, Anvil or Heartless Summoning. Xenaghost requires a creature already to be active and attacking, not really what this deck is doing. Perforos requires a lot of creatures. You don't really interact on that level. A lot of those higher end gods probably just need to be something else. As I've mentioned, Assassin's Trophy would actually fill that slot very well. Like, being able to have Assassin's Trophy to take out that Death Shadow could have meant the difference in Game 3. Taking out one of the lands that the Belcher deck needed would have made it so that they wouldn't have had enough mana to go off through the Dampening Sphere. Assassin's Trophy might actually give this deck some possibility, but when you start looking at that deck, it's Fatal Push, Collective Brutality, Lightning Bolt, Assassin's Trophy. Well, at that point, Rona should probably just be Liliana of the Vel, but still pretty good to sit down and have some fun with this deck. A little too expensive just for funsy. We did have a couple of opponents that said something along the lines of like, oh, God Tribal, that sounds like a ton of fun. Hope you do well, but yeah, that just didn't happen. Either way, I had some fun with it. Do not recommend. Still, again, power level 3 to 4. We went 1 and 4. Speaks for itself. It had the interaction that at least let it perform, but nothing extraordinary. Might be an F&M deck. Oh well, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a good one.